So this morning I wake up and I see in my inbox I have a message. And in this message it reads, "Could this be it?" That was the subject line. I click on it. In the message it reads, "Could this be it? Is Congress finally able to work together and provide for us here in the United States? Well, I guess we will see." And at the end of that sentence, there's a link. I click on the link and it takes me to an article that's talking about the government funding bill for fiscal year 2023. And how, again, this must pass by Friday. Well, I read that article and I read many others very similar to it. And honestly, I think that Congress now understands that they've had an inability to pass bills over the past couple years because they had all the power. But in this next Congress, starting in January, we are going to see Republicans and Democrats have to work together. And so whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, this should be somewhat exciting to see, because we're not going to get a partisan bill. We are going to see bipartisan bills pass, or nothing will pass at all. So this should be good news. And honestly, could this be it? Could this be the moment we've been waiting for, especially over the past handful of years, where we are just wanting to find our direction? Well, here's what I can tell you. I read through a lot of the articles and talking about what is potentially coming. Again, this bill was introduced. It hasn't been passed. As of recording this video, hasn't been passed by the Senate and hasn't been passed by the House. Now, what is in this bill? Keep in mind that the Senate is planning on voting on this bill prior to Thursday, and the reason for that is there's a deadline on Friday that this government funding bill has to pass by Friday. If it doesn't, the government would get shut down. But by passing it too early, for example, today in the Senate, what that means is it would go to the House could review it, and there would be 3 days that the House could actually ask for changes. So the reports as of this morning are indicating that the Senate is going to plan on passing this bill, or at least voting on it, and hopefully passing this bill by Thursday. Most likely it will be Wednesday or Thursday, to give very little time to the House of Representatives to make any changes. So, what is actually in this bill? Well, this bill is 4,155 pages long. I can assure you that nobody has read this entire bill to its entirety themselves, because again, this was just filed this morning at 1 a.m. Okay, that's Tuesday morning, December 20th at 1 a.m. Now, here's what's in the bill. It is actually for a combined $1.7 billion, and this is going to provide funds to agencies through September 30th, which would be the fiscal year 2023. It includes $858 billion for national defense. It includes a 4.6% raise to U.S. troops. We see there's $773 billion for domestic agencies, $45 billion of which is going to go to Ukraine, which in most cases, this is the expectation. This will be the last big draw of funding for a while. And the reason for this is because of Republicans taking control of the House of Representatives in January. This is why this is bigger than what was originally expected. We were expecting anywhere from $20 to $30 billion. This is why it's $45 billion, because Democrats know this will likely be it. $41 billion is going to go to disaster relief here in the U.S. This is going to cover things like fires and hurricanes and even earthquakes. Obviously we saw what happened down in California just today. So this is going to be needed as well. There's a 30% increase in grants for childcare. Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP benefits or food stamps, they're going to get an increase of $13.4 billion. So it's not just $13.4 billion in funding, it's an increase of $13.4 billion. So that's big news, because obviously SNAP benefits needs it as food prices have gone up substantially. Child nutrition programs will get an increase of $28.5 billion for this year as well, and another $6 billion will go to the SNAP program, Women, Infant, Children, also known as WIC. So that's big news there. We also see that the Electoral Count Act was included. This is something that we knew was likely going to be in the bill, and it is. There is a provision that will provide $2 billion in weapons funding to Taiwan. This isn't obviously what China wants to see, but that is included in there. We also have a ban on downloading TikTok. Now, you've probably seen the stories surrounding this, but the U.S. government was contemplating banning TikTok on any U.S. device. Well, they have decided to kind of pull that back a little bit. They're not banning TikTok as of yet for all people here in the United States, but the difference is they are banning TikTok or the downloading of TikTok onto government-issued phones. So that is big there. There's also $1.8 billion is going to go to boost semiconductor-related innovation, $22 billion to increase the veterans' medical care, $1 billion to improve Puerto Rico's electrical grid, which is desperately needed, and $1 billion to help lower-income families heat their homes. In times like this, and right now when I'm making this video, my computer says it is 18 degrees outside. 18 degrees. That's pretty cold. 18 degrees Fahrenheit. Pretty cold. Anyway, so $1 billion to help lower-income families heat their homes. That is going to be desperately needed, especially when some households cannot pay for their utilities. They're just too expensive. And even though we're not going to see shutoffs because it is so low, the temperatures are so low right now, the issue is what happens when the temperatures go back up. And I believe in most cases, when they drop below 32 degrees, utility companies cannot shut off the power. But what happens when they go up to like 40 degrees? It's still cold, and you still can't afford your payment. That's an issue. So this $1 billion will go to help that. But here is what was being considered. And there's a lot of talks on this. Ultimately, all these things that I'm going to address right now didn't get included into the bill. However, the bill hasn't actually gone up for a vote yet, so there's still time. I just don't see any of this stuff being put in there, especially when they've been negotiating this for the past week or so. But here's what's been left out. Billions for COVID funding. Simply cut out. This is something that President Biden really wanted. However, this is not being included. Senator Joe Manchin, he attempted to include the energy project permitting, but this ultimately was pulled as well. There was no corporate tax breaks, and this was part of the discussions, and I talked about this before, that the corporate tax breaks along with child tax credit payments, those were being considered to put together. However, there were no corporate tax breaks. Democrats, they wanted the child tax credit payments included, but Republicans said it was still too costly and it just didn't make sense. We also know there was no additional increase to IRS funding, especially after the American Rescue Plan and the billions and billions of dollars that went to the IRS there. There was no additional funding, so which is interesting. Normally there is some funding for the IRS, but I guess being that they just passed some, they didn't need it. And also, nobody could agree on raising the $31 trillion debt ceiling. However, according to reports, Republicans are planning to use the debt ceiling come April, May, June, because again, this most likely has to be passed by July. They're probably going to do something April, May, or June of this coming year to get Democrats to pretty much help them. And again, it's going to be the corporate tax breaks. But if Republicans can increase the debt ceiling and have the votes there, then they could potentially get something from Democrats as well. So again, the big news coming out today is they are starting to work together. Now, being that a lot of these things didn't get passed or didn't get pushed into the government spending bill for fiscal year 2023, there's going to be a lot of discussions moving forward, especially over the next 3 to 4 months. My guess is, and my expectation is that lawmakers are going to have to work together. We are going to see more bipartisan bills, which would be good, which would mean that we could potentially have better legislation. But at the same time, just and keep this in mind, we'll go one of two ways. We'll either see more bills and there'll be more bipartisan bills, or we're going to see nothing pass. But in the meantime, and in the middle, what we are going to see is a lot of partisan bills. Democratic bills that Democrats want to get Republicans on record of voting against, because that's what they're going to try to use in the upcoming presidential and elections. So keep that in mind. That's what's coming over in 2024. So for 2023, I would expect we're going to see a lot of bipartisan bills. But in the meantime, and before all that, we are going to see a lot of partisan bills, Democratic bills, Republican bills that, again, Republicans want Democrats on record voting against, because then they can show the American people that, hey, we tried to pass this, but Democrats said, not going to happen. So that's what we know at this time. But again, my hope is this could be it. This could be that final week or two, 11 days. About 11 days left in the year. So this could be the final 11 days, or really the past, got like 3 days, because then lawmakers are going to go on break again. But we got just a few days to get something done. This could be it. And this could be that turning point where lawmakers finally realize that they have to work together. So we will see. But as always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all latest news and updates. Again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.